Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. I'm your host Terry, coming to you from the waiting line at the Blue Beacon here in Racine, Virginia, at the Petro, exit 205. This is that Petro that's so freaking big that drivers cannot possibly physically walk all the way from the parking lot to get fried chicken, and they have to be taken by golf cart. I've never been here before. It's this kind of Rube Goldberg entrance just to get in here to get a washout. But it's a pretty good sized truck stop. I mean, heck, it might be as big as Iowa 80. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm just waiting. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, you know, and I have no idea why 3 loaded log trucks would be like here to get washouts. Like, and the trucks don't look that dirty, right? And you know, of course, they're all these Peterbilt 389s. But I'm like, why you just drove out of the woods or whatever? Like, I don't get why you wouldn't wait to get washed until after you got rid of the logs you got on the truck. I don't know. I'm sure there's a good reason. So anyway, today is the 12th of October. Few things happen on this day, and this was surprising to me when I learned this, but on this date in 1810, the first Oktoberfest was held in Munich, in Bavaria, in Germany. And the reason I'm surprised about that is because I thought Oktoberfest would have been going on since, like, you know, the 1400s or whatever, since beer was invented. But 1810, and it basically started out as a horse race to honor some royal person, and that's how it got started. So 1810, happy birthday to Oktoberfest. Also on this day in 1998, a young man named Matthew Shepard was murdered out in Laramie, Wyoming. His death, and it was widely believed he was murdered and beaten, tied to a fence, because he was gay. And you know, they did arrest the perpetrators, and his death precipitated a lot of federal hate crime legislation. So that happened in 1998. In 2000, and you know, I always have this opinion about history that, like, there's a saying in the intelligence community that there's no such thing as a coincidence, and I often believe that about historical events or any events, right? Like things don't just happen in a vacuum. And on this day in 2000, the USS Cole DDG 67 was bombed by people in Aden, Yemen, that were affiliated with Al-Qaeda. And that event, though, was a precursor event to the 9/11 attacks. There were other events that were precursors to that, but it was also that was also an event. And I'm just gonna pull up here in line while we're talking. I'm just gonna go up here, and there's a prime truck in front of me, so I'm gonna try not to hit him. So anyway, that's some of the historical stuff to happen. I wanted to talk about a couple of things that kind of came across my desk, if you will. So I talked about Sunset Logistics and how, you know, the Gainey family has, you know, they've made a lot of money, but not kept a lot of companies in the black in trucking, and you know, I wanted to mention this because a person that I know who has a YouTube channel, his YouTube channel is called Trucking with Jesus. And I mean, just so you know, I have never seen Jesus in his truck, but this is a guy that I know from, he and I were at GP Transco at the same time. And then I left, and then he subsequently left. But anyway, he was talking about Sunset Logistics and how these people were kind of dirt bags, right? And the Gainey people, Buddy Gainey and stuff. But here's the thing, I like him, but I think there's a blind spot, right? And something he said on his latest video, he talked about, well, they said they were Christian people, God-fearing people, but they aren't. They just cheated people. But I'm glad that I'm with a company now that, people are Christian. And I was like, look, dude, there's no such thing as a Christian company. And I've heard truckers say that crap before, right? I've heard people say, oh, hey, I'm going to what's that company out of Georgia? They used to have the little Confederate soldier on the trucks, but now they have a big cross. Kennesaw, right. Oh, maybe it's Kennesaw, but they're out of Rydell, Georgia or whatever. And this guy was like, oh, I'm going there because they're a Christian company. And I'm like, that's freaking stupid, okay? There's no such thing as a Christian company, right? Because if it was a Christian company, then every dollar that was earned would be getting paid to Christ. And it's not, okay? Anybody that says they're Christian, anybody that's got scriptures on their truck, and let me just extend this to the whole bullshit patriotic stuff. People that are like, oh, we support the troops, we do this, we do that, we got American flags plastered all over these trucks. Don't fall for it, okay? It's marketing. They're not patriotic, they're not religious. They will screw you over in a heartbeat. They don't care if you're a freaking veteran. They don't care what your religion is. They will screw you over, because anybody that's got to explain how honest they are, they're not honest. I can't ever recall in my life saying to somebody, when I was talking to them, like a sales pitch, if you will, I can't ever recall telling anybody that I was honest or ethical or whatever, right? Your behavior, your actions speak for themselves. Don't fall for this crap. If you're like, hey, my whole life revolves around, God and whatever religion you are, right? That's cool. I'm down, but that doesn't have anything to do with how you make a living. I mean, unless, you're like a criminal. But what I'm saying is that if you think that these people are good because they say they're Christians, you must not be reading the Bible, because the scriptures are filled with examples of hypocrites and liars. And, even Christ said, hey, people are going to come and say my name, but their actions will belie the fact that they don't really believe in me. So just a word of warning. And speaking of crappy companies that have gone out of business, Meadowlark, which is out of Billings, Montana, and they had I think 273 drivers. They just went out of business. But they also had a brokerage. And so apparently they owe a bunch of other trucking companies besides their own. They owe a bunch of people money. And this gets back to what I've said on numerous videos over the past couple of years. If a company, if anything is wrong, right? If your fuel card doesn't work and it doesn't immediately get resolved, get out, right? Just punch out and get out of that company, because there's a problem. And even if it's just like poor management, like they don't have the money in the right account or some other bullshit, you still need to leave, right? Get out before you get stranded. Sunset Logistics stranded drivers. Like I read about one dude, I think he was in North Dakota and had to get home to Texas, I mean, come on. And, and like Mark over at Trucking Answers always recommends, and it's good advice, make sure you got some cash available to you if this does happen. But here's the thing with Meadowlark, right? Like they're not paying their vendors, okay? And again, as soon as you hear about something, right? It's not a coincidence. It's just, it's a symptom of a bigger underlying problem, It's like when you see one termite, you can guarantee that that's not the first termite that moved into that house, right? And same thing with these trucking companies. When something doesn't go according to plan, you get paid late, right? Or they say, oh, hey, we had an issue with the bank, we'll just double up next week on your pay. Get out. Because even if they do pay you 2x the following week, there's a problem and they're not paying attention enough to be your bosses. And there's another company that I kind of got on the watch list, the Tim Travels watch list, like I did with USX. And it's another publicly traded company. It's Land Air. So Land Air is in the process of trying to merge with a freight forwarder called Omni. And what has happened is a Tennessee judge has issued an injunction based on a shareholder petition preventing this merger. But here's what's going on, right? This deal is a huge deal, but there's not a lot of cash being exchanged, and Land Air is larding up on debt to cover this merger, and they're paying tens of thousands of dollars in interest a day because they haven't been able to go to closing. But this is a shareholder rights suit. And, I don't know how that suit's going to get resolved, but here's something that did pique my interest, in addition to the fact that they're going to be carrying a butt ton of debt going forward. The other issue that I noticed in this article that I read is that they are buying a company that competes with their customers. And so, some of their customers have already raised concerns about why do we want to have business with a company that competes with us, right? And it's different than a brokerage, right? Because there are other freight forwarding companies that then maybe use a brokerage to get capacity. And so I always think it's when one of your customers expresses concerns about the fact that you are competing with them, and I've actually seen this before. At when I had my own law firm. It's not necessarily a good thing, right? Because then, what these freight forwarders are worried about is that the actual shippers will start using, or their actual customers will start using, Land Air's freight forwarder, which would be Omni. So if you're a contractor for them, just know that this company is taking on a butt ton of debt, and the kind of debt they're taking on, they have to come up and I'm, this is alarming, but they got to come up. They're going to be a company that's got to come up with $20,000 a day just to service that debt. And when I say service it, I mean just to pay the interest. Okay, that's a lot of money, right? I mean, when you have a big company, it's you're generating a lot of revenue. But 20,000 a day, every day. It doesn't matter if a bunch of your drivers were shut down for a snowstorm or, you know, anything else, right? That clock is ticking. 20,000, 140 grand a week, every week, week after week after week. So just be aware of that. You know, you can't be in this business, especially if you're not a company driver. You can't be in this business and not pay attention to the underlying financials of the company you're with. And, you know, like US Express, right? Like they went public and, you know, did this public float and their stated reason that back then was to pay down the debt they had. And instead, they just got more debt. And anybody that was paying attention, you know, to their balance sheet, because once they go public, right, they got to reveal it to everybody. You know, anybody that paid attention was like, wait a minute, it gets bigger every quarter. But the public float, meaning the money they made from selling all that stock at their IPO, should have paid off that debt. But the truth of the matter is that it didn't. And the reason it didn't is because their underlying fundamentals as a trucking company were substandard. So I'm sorry that, you know, the people at Meadowlark are getting messed over. I'm sorry that contractors that did stuff with Meadowlark are getting messed over. Sorry about the guys at Sunset Logistics. And I'm sorry there's a bunch of freaking fake Christians and fake patriots, as I like to say, out here in the trucking world. And, you know, when somebody is doing, you know, they're like, oh, we're a Christian company, we're a family. That's their way of saying, we think you're a sucker. We think you're a sucker. So just keep that in mind when you are making business decisions, right? Keep that in mind, and, you know, make sure that you are taking care of your business. Don't trust people just because, you know, they're successful business people, because a lot of successful business people are just doing it with borrowed money, and they got bad business practices, and they're just cleaning out the company. Like one of those Gainey guys has got his $2 million house for sale. You know, he's gonna be just fine. But all those drivers that got stranded and are looking for jobs and going 2-3 weeks without paychecks and getting their escrow money back, it's gonna take a while to recover. But the people that run a company into the ground never suffer. Trust me on that. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.